Where shall we three meet again? Well, I can do next Tuesday.
Macbeth, one of Shakespeare's most famous tragedies, looks at the influence of ambition, perseverance, and its terrible consequences. It all starts when the three witches instill in Macbeth the idea that he could and would be king. Well, what if the witches were the good guys? What if it wasn't a tragedy, but a comedy? And a stupidly funny comedy at that. Wyrd Sisters is a book written by Terry Pratchett, which pokes fun at Macbeth along with some of his other plays. Most of Pratchett's books are parodies, appropriations of a time period, place, genre, medium, or specific text, and Wyrd Sisters is no different. The book follows the witches named Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Ogg, and Magrat, spelt that way because her mother messed up her name, who moved to fix the monarchy in the kingdom. The echoes of Macbeth are ever present in Pratchett's story, as it is intentionally satirical and draws much from the play, such as the story, direct quotes, and themes. The story of Macbeth is iconic, a tragedy about the ambition of a lower lord that strives to become king, but ultimately is his downfall. The story in Wyrd Sisters, however, is a little different. It emulates the play, but twists it. The order of some events are jumbled and rearranged. The story starts with the king already murdered, his ghost watching the chaos that ensues with his death. Macbeth's soliloquy, where he famously says, "Is this a dagger I see before me?" is usually placed before he does his act of assassination, a speech of anticipation. However, Duke Felmet, Macbeth's substitute, says something similar weeks after. "Is this the dagger I see before me?" No, my lord. That's my handkerchief. You can sort of tell the difference if you look closely. It doesn't have as many sharp edges. He says it out of regret and anxiety, a hallucination of trauma. In Macbeth, Duncan's son Malcolm are stolen and fled, which puts upon them suspicion of the deed. He later returns to take back his throne. However, in Wyrd Sisters, the king's son is still a baby, incapable of being king. The witches have to send him away before Felmet's men can find him. Later, as the situation gets worse, the witches have to cast a spell that freezes the kingdom of Lanka in time and lets the world around it keep going for 15 years.
That means the lad will be 18 at the finish. We just do the spell, go and fetch him, he can manifest his destiny, and everything will be nice and neat.
Everything was not nice and neat. Tom John, the king's son, is completely unaware that he is the heir, and the witches have to trick him and the theatre company he joins over to Lancre to manifest his destiny. They figure out that he's in Ankh-Morpork, the Discworld's capital, as everyone ends up there. So instead of the kingdom's people panicking as
"The English barrel draws near, led on by Malcolm,"
Tom John arrives after being guided by the witches. As a very obvious poke at Shakespeare, he and his theatre troupe perform a play that exposes how Felmet murdered the king, and he reclaims his throne. Or so you think! It turns out that the heir was never Tom John to begin with. It was Felmet's jester. The subversion of the story and expectations are what drive Wyrd Sisters, and what make it so funny. There are a great number of similarities and differences that don't have anything to do with the story. In Macbeth, the whole plot stays within Scotland, Scotland! And within the place Macbeth chooses to reside. But in Wyrd Sisters, the world is much bigger than just one kingdom. Pratchett's novel is set within his universe, the Discworld, and involves more than just its medieval style. The Discworld is a mythical fantasy, and so magic, sorcery, and Tolkien-esque races are ever present. Not only that, but other locations such as Ankh-Morpork are integrated into the plot, making the world feel more connected, not just isolated to one part of the Discworld. Another twisted similarity is the characters. Most of the characters from Macbeth have Discworld counterparts, excluding some people like Banquo. The main difference is their personality and how they act. Unlike Macbeth, Felmet's ambition is not his own. He owes it to his wife, Lady Felmet, while she is like Lady Macbeth in that they both initiate the murder of the king, Lady Felmet is snappy but driven and seems to care less for Felmet than her goal for power. If it wasn't for the engine of her ambition, he'd just be another local lord, with nothing to do but hunt, drink, and exercise. As for the witches, instead of being mysterious and creepy, Pratchett turns them into bickering but hilarious main characters. I mean, just listen to them.
Double hubble, stubble, trouble, fire burning, cauldron bubble. Why isn't the cauldron bubbling, Margaret?
One reason why this works so well is that the witches in Macbeth are shrouded in mystery, so Pratchett could add his own personalities to the characters instead of changing them, like writing on a blank slate. Ultimately, Wyrd Sisters is a hilarious parody littered with the echoes of Shakespeare's Macbeth, but these echoes are not simply cut and pasted into the story. They are the inspiration of Pratchett's novel, and the subject he makes fun of, not the framework or skeleton for another Shakespeare clone. What's that you say? Seems a little bit on the nose? Well, what's the problem with a bit of good-natured fun anyway? You're killing the vibe! Like a witch!